Hello, my name is Betty Butch and I am a sex and kink writer and sex toy reviewer and a contributor to peepshowtoys' sex blog, which you can find on the website right about here. So today we're going to talk about the importance of queer inclusive sex education. So I'm a queer non-binary person and my sex education in high school was abysmal. I became sexually active in the summer before the sophomore year of high school. Coincidentally, I took my first and only sex ed class later that year. The PE teacher that taught us spent more time comparing football plays to what he called lovemaking than teaching us about our bodies. The curriculum focused on scaremongering about STIs, and the only time LGBT people were brought up was in the context of HIV. I didn't learn anything. I was sexually active but absolutely clueless about how my own body worked, how to navigate sex as a queer and trans person, or what safer sex looks like when you're not cis and straight. I had to learn by trial and error, and trial and error is not a term you want to use to describe your sex life. There's a difference between exploring what feels good for you and your partners and driving without a roadmap in a car where you can't identify where the steering wheel is. In an interview with author Mira Bellwether, autostraddle writer Kennedy Nabler said, "People would ask me, so what are you into? Where do you like to be touched?" And I could only ever respond with, I don't know, I haven't the slightest clue. I lacked sexual agency at the time because I lacked the knowledge that necessarily precedes agency. If I'd had comprehensive and queer inclusive sex education, I would have learned about using dental dams for safer sex involving vulvas, butts, and flaccid penises. Or how lube is beneficial to all kinds of sex, but especially sex involving anal. We would have talked about how not only is it important that your partner consents, but that the sexual experience is mutually satisfying and affirming. I would have learned about my body in the context of pleasures it can experience, not just its capacity to endure pain or house a penis. I would have learned how to talk about STIs, not just be afraid of them, what to look for, how to get tested, and how to talk to partners about my status. I would have learned that my body and the types of sex that I want to have with it are normal. I would have been able to make educated choices. And my straight cisgender classmates would have learned that LGBT people exist, that the sex we have is as normal and natural as anyone else's. And it's not a punchline or something gross that you dare each other to Google at the school library. And hopefully everyone would have learned that sex is about more than just sticking tabs into slots. There's a lot of ways that you can enjoy your body. Sex education needs to be queer inclusive and comprehensive because teenagers, and the adults they grow into, deserve to be educated and unashamed about their bodies, their desires, and their options. We should all know where our steering wheel is, and our roadmaps should be relevant to the direction we actually want to go. As an adult with unmonitored internet access and my own money, I'm able to seek out information for myself, as well as share it as a queer writer and sex blogger. If you're a queer or trans person who also missed out on LGBTQIA inclusive sex ed, there are a lot of resources for you. Here are 3 of my favorite ways to keep learning. Books. Some of my favorites include Allison Moon and KD Diamond's Girl Sex 101, which self-describes as being for ladies and lady lovers of all genders and orientations. I love Mira Bellwether's Fucking Trans Women. It's a single issue zine that talks about how to approach sex with or as trans women, but it also makes a lot of thought-provoking assertions about how we approach sex in general, and I think everybody should read it. Conventions, workshops, and classes. These exist both on and offline. Last year I attended Sex Down South, Atlanta's sexuality conference that centers on the experiences of people of color. I attended numerous queer inclusive workshops there, and it was a life-changing experience. If you're interested in in-person group learning, you should absolutely take the time to Google for local events when it's safe for large gatherings again. Alternatively, or in the meantime, try looking up some of your favorite queer sex educators and see if they're offering digital classes or group learning. YouTubers. YouTube sex educators like What's the Safe Word.
Today,
we're getting an education.
Well, we are supplementing the education that we did not have of the sexual nature.
Are you going to school me?
I'm going to school you hard.
Sexplanations.
My name is Lindsay Doe, and this sex curious show is Sexplanations.
Stevie Bobby.
Hi guys, I'm Stevie, and today we're going to talk about finger blasting.
Nadine Thornhill.
If you are wondering what age you should start talking to your kids about sex and what you should say, stay tuned because I have got some tips for you.
And Ash Hardell.
By now, it should be clear that there is no one way that all asexual people practice intimacy or have sex.
Create queer and queer inclusive sex education that's accessible, relevant, and fun to watch. In 2018, sex educator Dr. Nadine Thornhill crowdfunded and filmed a series of videos where she taught the recently repealed Ontario sex ed curriculum. The Ontario government had struck down this curriculum in part because of objections to the curriculum's discussion of consent and LGBT identities. While crowdfunding for the series, Dr. Nadine Thornhill said, "I'm also a parent, and like a lot of you, I want my child to learn that consent matters. That people with diverse gender and sexual identities are human beings worthy of respect and acknowledgement. Comprehensive sex ed gives youth information they need to lead healthier, happier lives." You don't have to go so far as to record an entire video series to compensate for your local school's shortcomings. You can instead help fund efforts to provide inclusive, comprehensive sex ed. For example, Scarletine has been a vital online resource for teens since 1988, and they survive largely off of donations. You can also check out GorillaSexEd.org, which not only lists resources, but has an interactive map where you can check out laws in your state regarding sex ed. You can connect with local advocacy groups and reach out to your representatives and let them know that you want better sex ed for youth today than what we had. You can also take the time to read the wealth of information presented by queer sex educators online, and in fact, you can start on Peep Show's own sex blog. Thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is Betty Butch, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Betty_Butch and at my website, bettybutch.com.